Yeah.
Welcome
To
the Energy and Hot Podcast.
hosted by
Jiggy.
and Steph.
I'm not gonna lie, I almost forgot the name of our podcast somehow.
It's okay. No, it really
It's
is okay, honestly. We do this every season.
Let's go because I'm pumped up for this topic.
Yeah.
Am I pissed? I don't know. But it's caught my attention recently and I really want to talk about it, and I hope that it can be helpful for anybody holding themselves back in any capacity. Even if you had started your business, even if you had started your project, maybe there's a little bit more you could be doing, but for whatever reason you're holding yourself back.
What do you mean by holding yourself back?
Let's get into I'll get into it. I'll get into it. Okay. So here we go. Episode starting now. Okay. Even if you have excellence, do you have the audacity?
Oh.
Even if you have skills, anything at all, even if what you're producing is what you got inside you is so dope, do you have the audacity? Because there are people out there who is I don't want to say average, but there are people who may not be as skilled as you are, as detail oriented as you are, as excellent of the thing that you do as you are, all of these things. I don't want to say inadequate because that's not the word, but they could, you could be more talented than they are. But just because they have the audacity to start or to do, to execute, get it done, even if it's not pretty, done is the new perfect. Just because they have the audacity to execute and they do so, they're out there probably more popular than you are, more well-networked than you are, making more money than you do. Not because you suck and they're better, but just because they have more audacity than you do. And I'm saying this because that there are parts of myself that I am so nitpicky sometimes. There are ways that I wish certain things would go a certain way. I expect this to look this way, and until I get there, or I want this to look perfect even from the start, the very start. So I'm not even going to start this thing until it's perfect. And somebody out there is just doing whatever I want to be doing just because they have the audacity to start. Even if it's a lower quality, for example. At the end of the day, me delaying whatever it is that I can offer to the world just because I expect a certain level of excellence, and usually is really high, just because of that, just because me holding myself back, me not producing what I should be doing, means that I'm delaying being able to help people. I'm doing a disservice to the world, to people I could potentially be helping, to people who could potentially be helped by me. And that's ridiculous. Selfish. That's just kind of how I'm seeing it. And we have to understand that those of us who are very excellence driven, our 50% is not my 50 cent. My 50% is probably their 100%. But just because we're so hard on ourselves, just because we expect so much from ourselves, we always want to strive for more and more and more. To others, we are so brilliant. The people who could be learning from us, the people who could be benefiting from us, they think what we know or what we do is so brilliant, and they're just waiting for us to birth something. But I keep saying I'm sorry. I'm the one who's holding myself back. because I see everything that I do from the lens of my expectations, I think that this thing is not ready yet. Or I think that this isn't good enough yet. Or this isn't articulate yet. Like because or like to me, even if it's excellent to others, to me it's like average. Because I'm in a room amongst other excellent people too. So I might think that I'm average, but to the rest of the world who could actually be helped by me, who could be influenced by me, who could be motivated by me, whatever it is, they're just waiting for me to do something. But I'm the one holding myself back. And I'm sharing this because I really want to emphasize like Audacity, because even somebody like me, I think that people look at me and be like, oh, Jiggy's fearless, Jiggy's so courageous, Jiggy da 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 da. But like, I haven't even gotten started yet. And there's so much that I haven't produced because I keep thinking there's this checklist and everything needs to be checked off before I produce. But me delaying the completion of something, the execution of something, just because of my own high standard checklist, I'm doing the world a disservice.
Are you gonna say something after you breathe? Or, okay. I wanted to make sure you felt complete there.
Yeah, what's coming up for you?
Well, I love that you were very open about how like you even struggle with that, and that's something that you're kind of working through. Like, do you think it's like perfectionism? Like, what is it that's holding you back from doing the thing?
It's 100% perfectionism. I think like naturally it could also be fear.
What are you fearful?
In like fear of, is this product or this service good enough? Is it providing enough value? Is it a high quality resource? Is it going to be worth the price tag that I put on it? Are they going to find flaws in me or whatever it is that I'm providing? But at the end of the day, like, why do I always have like first go towards what could be wrong? I recently read a quote that says like, you know how people say like, what could go wrong? But it's like, what could go right? Is kind of the mental shift. And so if something is inadequate, then I'm sure I'll learn and all I have to do is adjust. But because I want to be perfect from the get-go, I'm holding myself back.
Yeah, I think I've read that quote too.
Yeah.
Very recently. Maybe our algorithm is
Probably
turning out the same.
Yeah. I think we're the ones who make it complicated. We are the ones who make it all complicated.
Yeah. The other thing that was coming up was just like I can name like a dozen people right off the top of my head that are much further than I would not like to admit this, but they are much further than I am. And I used to think, and I'm sure this is natural for everyone, but like I would look at people's like profiles or look at people's things, and the thing that comes to our head is like, well, but like their product's not as good as mine, or like their whatever stuff that they're putting out is not as good as mine, or like mine's always like high quality, and like how much of like high quality then becomes an excuse to not like create, to not launch, to not put something out there, you know. And I think of like the like there's an element of, I mean, there's very much ego, right? Like oh, like, well, mine's better. You know, like, okay, like, chill, bro. Like, like, you're, like, why not just admit that, like, you're not quite where you want to be? Like, at least for me, I'm not saying you. But, like, I know that there are times when I feel like I'm not where I want to be, and I want to be more like this person that I'm seeing. And it's hard to admit that there's, like, envy and there's jealousy for where a person is at. And I think that it's what you do with that feeling that matters at the end of the day, right? Yeah. There's nothing wrong, I think, with looking out there. I mean, comparison is very natural, I think, human tendency, but what matters is what happens in the aftermath.
Yeah.
Like, do you transform that into taking action? Do you transform that into changing your mindset, changing the way that you work? Or do you hold on to that and keep thinking that, but not change anything?
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. And I think like humility is so important. And I keep saying this season, but like putting your ego aside is so important. And like y'all know that Steph and I are very community driven people. We believe in the power of collaboration. And I think that before you and I look at somebody and be like, yo, my product or my service or this and that, my skills are so much better. But okay, but the truth of the matter is that they're ahead for a reason. And maybe it has nothing to do with like the skill or the product. Maybe they're just really good at networking. Maybe they're for sure doing something that you and I are not. So get curious about that. Find out what that thing is, and does this mean that you possibly have to connect with that person and start a collaboration, a friendship, whatever it is, and ask each other questions? And maybe you actually have something that they do not. Clearly, because you say that you got the skills, but be having the openness to like start a conversation rather than be so egoistic and be like, oh, competition.
Yeah.
Oh, oh, self-made and lone wolf. Oh.
I'm not gonna work with you. So I think that calls into that's really related to the idea of abundance, right? Like I think, you know, when you work in a specific industry, like here's the deal.
Oh,
There's gonna be a bunch of other people that are working in the same industry that you are. That's just sorry, like there's no way to change that.
Billions
right?
of people.
There will always be, right? But I think like what you have to keep in mind is, and this is something that I have to constantly tell myself too, like you are unique though. Your lived experiences, the people you've worked with, like no matter what, if they're in the same industry, like what you give is still different even if it's in the same industry. And I think that like something that I've been working on is moving towards more abundant sort of thinking, and thinking like, well, what are the ways, instead of thinking like, oh, they're like you said, like a competition, what if you just thought like, man, like what if we banded together, like what could we actually create together, how much more impact can I make with all of us like pulling our resources together, you know? And I think that that's one of the biggest hurdles, I feel like, that prevents people from being where they can be. And I think at the end of the day, collaboration is truly the way forward. There's so much magic that comes with being able to work with somebody, different ideas, different resources, like all of that stuff. But we have to be not afraid of making that ask, and being okay with like being with the like fear, right, or the uncertainty of like what will come up, or like you know, all of that, which are very real things, but being okay with that and still making that invitation.
Yeah. And this isn't even like some like, oh, for like woo woo community driven people who always talk about friendship all the time. It's like it's it's a proven theory. Like when people collaborate, something really powerful can and successful can come out of it. Like I don't know why like music is coming so quickly to me all of a sudden, but like yo, look at what came out of the pandemic from Timbaland and Swiss Beats. They just like started off on Instagram Live, just like going at each other, playing their beats, and then now they have verses, and now they're doing shows. Now they're making money off of it, and it's like those are the two of the most brilliant producers, and they had fun with it. Like I think that isn't it kind of crazy that if you were to I don't want to say like competition or enemies or anything like that, but if you were to talk about like if you were to imagine, because your enemy, your competition, like you like the same thing, like you love the same thing, you're so passionate about the same thing, you're both very dedicated to this thing to at the same time, wouldn't it be fun to kind of continue like work together, learn from each other, create something together that could actually like take you further than you either of you ever imagined? And I'm not saying that like everyone will always get along, you know, like I think something that we always talk about. Oh, we talked about it in the episode about like working with friends. Is like core values. Your core values have to align. And sure, certain people in the same industry might not align and not collaborate because their core values are completely different. Then fine. But again, just like coming from a place of humility, like it's not like I think there's a lesson in everything. And when we put the ego aside and look at the situation and say, like, what can we learn from this? I mean, this is starting to be about more collaboration than it is about having audacity. But, like, I think both can live in that, like, what am I trying to get at?
Well, okay, I think it is about it. It still is about audacity too. But I think when we think about audacity, there's more of like this feeling of like I don't want to say it's like comparison, but it's like there's something to shoot for. I think when we talk about audacity, when we look at somebody, just like damn, like they really put themselves out there. Like I want to be like that. Like I want to strive towards that. I think there's a goal there, and I think when you start to do that, you do build the confidence for collaboration. I think there I don't want to say there's a correlation. I just think that there is a relationship. Like with that, you know, like sometimes people aren't ready for collaboration, and sometimes people are caught up in the jealousy and the envy. That's cool. Like that's, you know, that's very natural. But again, it's like, what do you do? How do you take action after? And I think for some people, it will be, I'm actually going to reach out to this person, love what they're doing, let me send them a message. For some people, it's actually like, I have something to learn from them, and I'm going to take action on that first on my own before I like reach that level where I feel confident being able to collaborate with them. So there's a lot of different ways I think that people can approach things, but I think the central message that we're trying to say is like, don't just sit there. Like, don't sit there. You know, don't sit there. Like either collab or like build the confidence through what you're able to like give value in.
Dang. Business coach over here. Whoa. Is that like another thing we're adding to, you know, Steph in the conference in the future? To add to that, I think dealing with jealousy is like really important too, especially in like business and stuff like that. If we stay in the mindset, the heart of envy and jealousy, it can get so unhealthy and toxic, not just for like what you have that towards that person, but like you as a person, you in general, the spirit and the energy of you. And I think that once you feel the jealousy or the envy, like before you DM them because Steph and Jiggy told you to do so, or to learn from them because Steph and Jiggy told you to do so, before all that, check in with yourself. And I think it's okay to actually take space away. I like hold your, like, you gotta create some boundaries. If something is like triggering you, if something is a pinch for you, like you gotta end up not looking at them all the time. Like, don't be obsessed. Stop thinking about them. Looking at them from a space, have the spaciousness to have admiration. Don't force it. Otherwise, you're being fake. Otherwise, when you do DM them, then rather than coming from a spirit of collaboration, you're coming with the spirit of wolf under sheepskin, whatever. Like keeping your enemies close to like all that. So bullshit, dude. All that, like that's what you're doing, and that's not a good spirit. And
people can feel that stuff out.
Yeah, like, don't be doing that and then say that Jiggy and Steph told you to do it. That's why you're doing it. Like don't do that.
No. Yeah, I think I mean the lesson I think from that is like you still have to be in integrity with what you are experiencing. So if the jealousy and the envy is taking over, I feel like, hey, you got some work to do. Work on that first. Like if you can't actually feel it, if feeling like reaching out and collaborating is not fully in integrity for you, don't do it. Like because people can feel it, people can sniff that stuff out. And you know, if there's, you know, if you're still feeling overwhelmed by those feelings, then there's work to do there. And but that's still in and of itself is really great progress still. Like it's still really good that you acknowledge that and you're like willing to be with that. I think that's still a step really big step in the right direction.
Yeah.
Because sometimes we experience these things and we don't want to face them, or we're just like, oh, listen, let me just like, keep doing things like the way that I've been doing that, which doesn't serve anyone, doesn't serve you, doesn't serve the people that you're here to serve. But still being clear and being in integrity is still the number one North Star, despite everything that we're saying.
Yeah. And I think this is just really important because so many other like business and self-development podcasts is always going to tell you like everything is a competition in this world, and I just really wish for all of us to be like humble and also demand more from self sometimes, that like, yo, if you're uncomfortable by looking at somebody else's success, take that as a lesson and check in with yourself what that is. Is it because it could be that it could trigger like insecurity, like you might think that you're not good enough, but like I said in the beginning, it's like, no, you might be really freaking excellent at something. It's just that you might be holding yourself back because of the lack of audacity. And there's a lesson of opportunity here. Instead of judging the other person, to look at it as an opportunity to collaborate or to learn something, but not being like, oh, I'm better than the other person, therefore I'm gonna beat them. And Jiggy and Steph told me that I need more audacity, so I'm gonna have the audacity. I'm gonna start launching this program, and then I'm gonna crush the other person.
Definitely not
It's
that.
like sometimes you gotta thank your competition for making you better.
Yep, that. Yeah. I think that.
This is pretty straightforward.
Yeah, I think that. I think the takeaway, boundaries. I think the takeaway is like, if you're feeling, or one of the things I'm thinking about is like, when you're checking in with yourself and you're not ready yet, then there are some boundaries that are required, right? And to enable you to be with jealousy or envy and then take action. And sometimes like that's the course of action that needs to be taken. And there's seasons. There's seasons in which you may experience these things and you may not be ready to take that action. That's okay too. Like, but what's most important is you actually like check in with yourself and like really understand what's going on internally, so that you can externally take the proper action that aligns with like what you're experiencing internally.
I feel like I just said my takeaway. I think
Great.
everything that I said in this episode is my takeaway.
There's a bunch of this is such a practical. This is such a practical.
Yo, we've been crying too much, you know?
Amazing.
Sometimes we gotta remind them. Y'all be forgetting.
Just because we did see wolves and we were sad about things,
Listen.
doesn't mean that we actually like we still know what we're doing.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. I'm pausing in case there's something you want to add before we close.
Yeah, I think integrity at the end of the day like is always going to be the most important thing, because I'm thinking about like conflict of interest right now and why certain similar companies don't work together at the end of the day, but truly like it still comes down to core values and integrity.
Mm-hmm.
Like,
of course it does.
that's the drawing line. Don't just collaborate with anybody, but don't just do things on your own and think that everybody's competition too. Yeah.
All right.
All right.
Thanks for listening.
Bye.
See y'all next time.